Hey everybody, I'm Joshua Vidovic from Vidovic Arts, and today I've got a bunch of dwarves for you guys. I said I'd have them, and here they are. So, there's two different batches. There's these guys here who have guns, and these guys here who were sort of designed to be the peasants, or like peasant-y population of a town, of a dwarven city that we're in. But you could easily use these guys for adventurers, just in general. They don't really have armor or anything like that. They are just generic dwarves. Some of them have weapons, some of them don't. They'd be great for like townspeople or like merchants and all that kind of stuff. I'm really happy with how they looked. They took a damn long time to paint and to base. Now these were printed on the Photon, so no FDM printer was used. This was all resin, and they came out really high quality. I really love the way these guys look. There's tons of detail on them, and they're just really cool little models. Now I've not done this before. I'm actually releasing a couple of these guys on Thingiverse, and the rest will be over on Patreon, because I just wanted to release a bunch of models for Patreon supporters only, but I also want to give, Thingiverse people some models too. So there's only 4 models available over on Patreon. That'll be, let's see if I can find them. It'll be this guy in the red, this guy with his little axe, this guy with his arms crossed, and I think possibly this guy as well with his arms crossed. So those 4 guys, we'll just move these out of the way. These are the ones that you'll find over on Thingiverse, and the rest are available on Patreon. So if you want to support me, you can head over there and you can pledge a couple dollars per video or per month. It's completely up to you, and you'll have access to all of these guys and more. So let's get into the making of this, and let's just have some fun. Now if you're watching this from my Patreon, you will have seen the Gregor the Cleric, which was a dwarven model I made for a friend in my D&D session. He's basically a dwarf with a hammer and a cloak, and the classic beard, bald head, and he's a really cool looking model. Now I actually based all of these models on him. So I modeled him up and I rigged him so all his fingers can move and all his bones are there and everything like that. And I took him and I posed him in multiple different ways, and I took him over to ZBrush, and from there I made them much more unique. I made multiple different variations of the models, and as you can see, they came out all different. I actually gave some of them a bit of a gut to make them look fatter or musclier, and it was just a lot of fun working on it this way. I got to do a lot more than I could modeling. It was just a lot easier and faster, but I also made sure that the poses were able to change out weapons later on, or add in extra things like just little accessories like belt buckles, or like potion vials and backpacks and all that kind of stuff. So when I print these up, I could change models if I wanted to, just the way they look in general. I also kept a lot of these guys bald so I could add hair later on, which was kind of an interesting way to do it. I think it worked out rather well. It just takes a really long time to export these. I think it's probably because my computer's running a little bit slow, but I think I would like to see some people change these up for themselves. I've given you a couple models to work with Thingiverse. You should be able to change some of them if you have that skill. You should be able to change the weapons out, or at least take those weapons and use them on other things if you really wanted to. Now when it came time to printing these guys, I really haven't emphasized how good the resin printer actually is. And I haven't really shown off how I print either. So the printer, if you compare it to an FDM printer, if you were to print maybe 8 guys in a row, it might take around 8 to 10 hours. Printing 8 of these dwarves took an hour and a half. It took an hour and a half to print 8 guys in total, and that is just mind-blowing. It really opens up the doorways to speed printing, basically. My skeletons in previous video also took, I think it was like 12 hours to print them, and it took 2 hours to print on the resin printer, so definitely worth looking into if you don't like waiting around for your prints to finish. Now, because I'm still learning with the printer, there were a couple guys that failed, but I basically just made out like as if they had missing limbs and stuff like that. Fortunately, in the campaign, one of the dwarves actually had his arm lopped off, so I removed a little bit of the failed print and I painted his arm so it looked like it had just been recently chopped off, and it works really well and it looks cool. So if your models do fail, and they don't fail completely outright, you can always come back and touch them up or add things to them to keep them and not have to like reprint it entirely. But when they do fail, it is a little bit annoying because at least you're not waiting like 12 hours to wait for to see that it's failed, because that is a terrible time to have. With the printer, the resin printer, it costs a little more for the resin, but you've got that time to make up for it. So if a print fails, you can just go back and reprint it in the same day. It's pretty cool. Now, painting these guys was a real pain, I would say. They're so small, and they just took a really long time to paint. I started with their skin tones, and, well, a lot of them were wearing, like, sort of tunics, so I painted a brown undercoat over all of them. This made up the undertone of the skin, the tunics, the wood, the hair. It really just like got all of the work done early on. From there I worked on the actual skin tone, which was a cream based color, and I worked the highlights. And from there onwards I worked on things like metals, hair colors, and extra details like, the little belt buckles and whatnot. So there's a lot of tiny little finicky things in these models, and if you enjoy painting that kind of stuff, these are the models for you. If you enjoy painting dwarves, I've painted some Warhammer dwarves in the past, and some Warhammer goblins, and oh my god, they are just such a headache to paint. They're really fine details. But I actually really enjoyed these guys. They're not too much of a hassle. They're just good fun to paint. They just take a really long time because I pretty much painted them the same day they were printed, which was insane as well because, they printed in only, I think it was 4 hours in total, so it was 2 batches of, I'm going to say 10 guys, or maybe it was 3 batches, I can't remember now, but it was really quick, and I painted them just as fast. When it came time to basing them, I printed the bases with my FDM printer, and they took longer than the models themselves, which is insane. But they work really well, these bases. I added the stones to them with the PVA, and I painted everything black as well, and added that, the gravel look with a grey and highlights over the top of them. Now, the overall theme for these models is the Underdark. I know they're supposed to be, the Underdark Dwarves, the Dragor or whatever they are. They're supposed to be really dark-skinned, purple even, I think. And I thought to myself, I don't want to do that, but you definitely could. These guys are easily convertible for those kind of models if you wanted to. In fact, all dwarves are convertible for that kind of style, if you really wanted to go down that route. But I want to use these for other campaigns set in other campaigns, so I wanted to have these dwarves be interchangeable and not have to have them rely entirely on the Underdark to exist. So, these guys are completely free, and these guys are available on Patreon via the $5 pledge, and that's per month or per video, completely up to you. You can cap it to however you want, really, but that is what I'm setting it as, and I hope you guys enjoy these. I would really love to see some of these painted up and added to whatever kind of campaign you're going to be setting them in. If you do that, make sure you post over on Instagram using the hashtag VidovicArts. I'd love to see your work. It applies for all my 3D prints, so don't feel like, you just have to print these guys up and post them over on Instagram. I just love to see you guys' works painted up and on display. So, and that's the end of this video for today, and here we have the final look at the dwarves. They are really cool. I hope you guys like them because I really love them. And a final farewell, and as always, stay awesome, guys. See ya.